When I started out on my permaculture journey, I dove in. I spent hours watching permaculture designers on YouTube, carefully taking notes on their guilds or plant systems. I got really excited, sheet-mulched my entire front yard, and spent hundreds of dollars on plants, all to watch them shrivel up and die. Here's the thing. When I tried copying what other folks were doing, I didn't really have a deep understanding of why what they did worked. So today, let's talk about what to plant if you actually want a food forest that thrives. A food forest is basically a garden inspired by how forests already work. Layers of trees, shrubs, vines, herbs, and ground covers all supporting each other. And the easiest way to get there is prioritizing the right plants. So today we're going to talk about how to pick what plants are right for your permaculture design in your climate. Let's use these 3 steps as a guide. Before you hit the garden center or start drawing up your layouts, start by asking, what already grows here? Local native plants are absolute overachievers. They're already adapted to, well, everything. Your soil, your rainfall, your weather patterns. You know that they can live there happily. So that means no sprinklers, no covering them up in the winter, and no shade cloths needed in the summer. No soil amendments, conditions are perfect. They also support local wildlife, which not only do we need to be good stewards of biodiversity, but they support that food web from the smallest pollinators all the way up. When I started looking at native plants, I hit a huge, possibly self-imposed barrier. I would go to garden centers and look for the little native tags on the plants, not realizing that some of those are a little bit misleading. It can be for plants from all of North America. So I would plant things like American persimmons and pawpaws thinking that they'd survive in my yard. I live in Boise, Idaho, which is a high desert climate. They didn't. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I didn't get nearly local enough. So when people say local, they really mean your specific biome. I'm heading to bplant.org to show you this. Sorry it's for North America, there's probably other resources out there for folks in different places. So for me in Boise, that's the Snake River Plain. But you can see using this tool the areas that are going to have a fairly similar climate to ours. And then if we back up, we can see our place in Washington. We're in the Eastern Cascades foothills. And there's a few different ways to identify plants that are native to your region. I found 2 websites that I really love, and there's probably more. The first is Easyscape.com. You can type in your address and come up with loads of native plants to meet different conditions. This is pretty awesome. The second is iNaturalist. This one also has an app, so you can identify things when you're outside. The smart folks on there have helped me identify a lot of plants that I was unsure of. If you'd like to get support from humans in real life, which I would highly, highly recommend, here's a couple options. These unfortunately are fairly US specific, but hopefully there's something similar where you live. First off, university extension offices are incredibly and wildly underused resources. They have resources on their websites, and they almost always have classes available to the public. And every one of them that I've taken has been so helpful. I can't state how much I love the classes that I've taken through the U of I and UW extension offices. So thank you, universities. Local conservation districts are also super helpful. I'm hoping to do an interview with one of our conservation district's outreach coordinators later this year. Conservation districts are wonderful. They'll often have things like native plant sales and other resources for you. And these people want you to succeed. They're very happy to help. Think of native plants as the backbone of your food forest. I think for edible plants that they should make up at least 50% of what you're putting into the ground. Now, this may vary depending on the size of your yard and what you're hoping to achieve there. But for me, that's the right answer. And honestly, for the support plants, I'm trying to make sure that I plant nearly all native species. Do we really need more comfrey in the world? No. I guarantee that role can be filled by native plants that are already around you. Now, the only downside that I've found to native plants is there is a learning curve. And I don't mean in how to keep them alive. Obviously, they're going to do that just fine. But I mean in learning how to eat them. If you look up here, or possibly here, I'm not sure, I'll post my video that I've got on how to process acorns into flour. It's chaotic because it was a very frustrating process. But fortunately, that kind of thing you only need to learn once, as opposed to trying to keep a plant alive that really doesn't want to survive there. So I think it's definitely worth it. But just as a heads up, eating native plants could provide some amount of challenge at first. Here's what I'm planning on using at our place in Washington. Gary oaks for their acorns, beaked hazelnuts, Saskatoon berries, golden currants, biscuit roots, yampa, and miner's lettuce. And I'm planning on spreading some of our local nitrogen fixers like broadleaf lupine, American vetch, and white alder. Once you've explored native species, the next step is looking at plants from similar climates around the world. Think of these as your easygoing house guests. They're going to fit into your food forest without needing constant attention. This is where Köppen climate classification is useful. It shows you similar climates from around the world, so you can find plants that already like your temperature swings and rainfall patterns. But wait, before you plant a single Köppen climate friend, please do me a favor. Get back in touch with your conservation district and check out their invasive plant list. Check it and double check it. The fact that these plants already love your climate means that they could start to take over. We want to make sure that the plants that you're putting in are actually going to be chill house guests and not someone that ends up squatting, trashing the place, and not leaving when you ask them to. Now that we've done that warning, let's take a look at these maps together on Köppen.earth. As you can see, this website has a slider that takes into account future temperature conditions. I'm going to look a little into the future for our place in Washington. You can see that it's CSA, which is a hot Mediterranean climate zone. So let's go back in time and see where that traditionally was. Coastal Spain, Italy, Greece. So I should get inspired by the cuisine there to determine my plants. I'll still need to check rainfall averages to make sure that they'll be okay. But this is where I could use some of those methods made famous by permaculture to store water on site. I'm talking about things like swales. They also might need some light soil amendment, so make sure to do your research there. An important thing to note here is how rainfall patterns are observed. So let's go back to the map. I could look into other hot, dry climates to try to find plants. But if they're in the monsoon climate, where the rainfall happens during the summer, those plants are not going to be happy in our dry summer climate. They might survive, but they probably won't bear fruit. So from this group of plants, we're planning on putting in figs, grapes, artichokes, capers, and maybe olives if we can protect them for the first few years. These are some of my favorite things to eat, so I'm pretty excited. Now that we've found our easy growers, we get to the edible plants that most of us know and love. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just really f***ing needy. These plants tend to need regular watering. They're going to need you to amend the soil, and they'll need protection from pests. And by pests, I'm not just talking about things like bugs. I'm talking about things like mule deer. Have you ever tried to keep baby apple trees alive when there's mule deer in the area? These are going to be the easiest when you grow them in smaller amounts. And they're going to need to be close to infrastructure. Think about things like fencing, irrigation, and maybe greenhouses or polytunnels. So these are going to take a lot more work. I mean, they're definitely worth it. They're plants that we all love to eat. I'm definitely going to put some apple trees in, and I plan on having a vegetable garden too. But just know that they are going to require a lot more work. So I'm trying to keep these plants to less than 5% of our food forest because I just don't have the energy to babysit them. So remember, plant in this order of priority. When you plant this way, maintenance is going to drop over time because, nature's doing most of the work. And you'll find that your garden is more resilient. So before your next planting season, make sure you're building from what already thrives. If this video helped, give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see more like it because I definitely plan on doing a whole series on permaculture design. And let me know in the comments, what are you planting in your food forest?